Luo City was one of the cities in Emperor Qi's territory. Luo City was one of the cities in Emperor Qi's territory. The Yun clan of Luo City was the most powerful force to be found in that ancient city. Yi Futian found the city to be an extremely bustling one after entering it, which was comparable to Qinya City in terms of liveliness. That city was considered a medium-class city in Heavenly Mandate realm. While it was without doubt stronger than the smaller cities, the city itself was considered a small city when compared to top-notch cities. The key lied with the city it was being compared to. Many in the city took notice after Yun Tung and the others entered the city, and everyone seemed very respectful, which showed that they apparently knew who Yun Tung and the others around him were. The group came to a grand, majestic-looking manor. That was the manor of the Yun clan of Luo City. Someone was seen coming out of that grand building to receive them. How did it go, father? A middle-aged beautiful woman of St. Plain looked at Yun Tung and asked. There had been some hiccups. Yun and I, this is Yi Futian, Yun Ting said and introduced the young man to his daughter. He then said, see to our guest here and send men out to see if there are any who seems to have ran into predicaments similar to Yi Futian in the region. I'd need to be elsewhere. Very well. Yun and I nodded. The clan was a huge one, and her father still needed to report to her grandfather. Yun Ting nodded slightly to Yi Futian before leaving with a group of people. Yun and I gave the order and then said to Yi Futian, Sir Yi, we of the Yun clan still has some influence in Luo City. If your friends were to have landed in Luo City or somewhere nearby, it shouldn't be difficult to find them. If they were to end up in territories further away, things would have been considerably more difficult. Thank you. Yi Futian then nodded. Please come in, Sir Yi. Yun and I extended her hand and said. Both of them walked and then she asked. So you have fought with the Celestial Swordly clan, Sir Yi? Indeed. Yi Futian nodded. The people of the Celestial Swordly clan wanted to kill me. I owe my life to Senior back then. Father was not actually doing it all for you, Sir Yi. Yun Ni's eyes turned rather cold and continued. The way the Celestial Swordly clan carry about their business, and how Li Rushuang is being so aggressive now. It is just normal for father to butt in. The group came to an elegant compound, and there seemed to be a young woman training before them. Sparks of lightning dazzled all over her, contained auras of rules. She extended her hand and slashed. The resulting lightning shot forward like a serpent. However, that did not seem to be the result she was after. She turned around and saw Yin and I and Yi Futian. She then called, Mother. This is my daughter, Yun Qianyue. Qianyue, this is Sir Yi. Yun and I introduced. Sir Yi. Yun Qianyue took a look at Yi Futian and bowed slightly. That silver-haired young man had extraordinary bearing and was probably not common folk, but he looked very young, as if he was her age. However, his aura was very reserved, and his training would have probably been of very high levels. Her mother, who was a saint, would not have addressed him as Sir otherwise. Is the Yun clan mainly practicing the ways of lightning? I have seen Senior Yun's lightning ways, and the power shown was extraordinarily overwhelming, Yi Futian said. You're too kind, Sir Yi. The lightning arts of the Yun clan is naturally considered powerful in Luo City, but we're not even at Renhuang class. If we were to take the entire Heavenly Mandate realm into consideration, we wouldn't even be considered strong at all. Furthermore, there is also an insurmountable mountain in the realm, Yin and I elaborated. You mean to say, Yi Futian was feeling curious? Nothing much. It is still all too far away. Yin and I said as she shook her head. She did not want to say more, and that was not part of her world after all. All lightning arts in the world originates from the Heavenly Palace. Yun Qianyue's voice sounded rather serious when she said it. That violet palace high up in the clouds was to be known number one throughout the 3,000 realms in lightning arts. As such, it was said that all lightning arts in the world originated from the Heavenly Palace. Due to the Heavenly Palace being a part of Heavenly Mandate realm, there were many forces training in lightning arts in the realm. All lightning arts in the world originates from the Heavenly Palace. Yi Futian mumbled to himself, and then continued, boisterous indeed. The Violet Heavenly Palace was the most powerful force to be found practicing lightning arts. Countless lightning arts found throughout the 3,000 realms of the Great Path have all been derivatives in one way or another of what is practiced by the Violet Heavenly Palace. This is not actually boisterous at all. Yin and I smiled and said, "What about Brahma's pure sky then?" Yi Futian asked all of a sudden. Both Yin and I and Yin Qianyue were stunned. They then looked at Yi Futian with peculiar expression. Yin and I then smiled and said, "While you're of formidable training, Sir Yi, but it is best to not venture into a place like the Brahma's pure sky." Brahma's pure sky was simply too far away for them. Yet it was where all women in the world wanted to go to. An empress was enlightened to the great path at Brahma's pure sky. And that place was lauded as the #1 mountain in the world. The Jyotian goddess who served the empress was a figure that countless worshipped. There was simply none of them who were not legendary Renhuang. It was not a surprise for Yin and I to tell Yi Futian to not think too much about it. Even the virgins who served the Jyotian goddess had already been a holy figure that countless deemed unreachable, let alone a supreme force like Brahma's pure sky. Is the Lord of Brahma's pure sky that powerful? Yi Futian asked. What you're saying now, Sir Yi, is probably heard by the Lord of Brahma's pure sky. Yin and I continued. That is a being whose will reaches the 3,000 realms. It is said that she is possibly someone capable of breaking through the heavenly path. Yi Futian's expression was a solemn one. That Lord of Brahma's pure sky was indeed too far away from him. However, if he were to be clear of Jiyu's situation, and wanted to know about whether his wife was dead or alive, he would have had to get to Brahma's pure sky sooner or later. He turned his eyes around and looked at Yin Qianyue, saying, "The lightning arts that you intend to practice before. Is it something like this?" Yi Futian said and slashed at the sky. Dazzling flashes of lightning shot out, seemingly cutting the sky. Indeed. Yin Qianyue's eyes sparkled. She nodded and said, "Somehow I just don't seem to get the hang of it. I'd be honored to have your guidance." Forget what you've learned before, and forget the rules that you've come to comprehend. Just focus on practicing the technique, and spend some time repeating it, and see if you have learned something new by then, Yi Futian said. Yin Qianyue was steeped in thought for a bit, before nodding and saying, "Will do. Continue your training then." Yin and I said to Yin Qianyue, and then brought Yi Futian to a compound. The place looked elegant and Yin and I asked, "How about you stay here for the time being, Sir Yi?" "Thank you indeed," Yi Futian said. "You could come and look for me if you need anything, Sir Yi," Yin and I said, and then left the place. Yi Futian took a look around. The Yin clan of Luo City seemed to be a place like Qianya City back in Crimson Dragon Realm. With holiness of nirvanas ruling over a city, there was definitely a holiness of nirvana among the Yin clan. Yin Tung was out to report, and he would have probably head out to report to the clan leader. Yi Futian felt rather restless when he thought about his people scattered all over the place after the teleportation turned haywired. It would have been fine if they were dropping out somewhere nearby. If they had ended up somewhere too far away, the size of Heavenly Mandate Realm would have made it very difficult to locate them, unless they were to cause a ruckus large enough to shake a region. Let's just see if they have any useful news about, Yi Futian told himself and put it behind him, closing his eyes to train instead. Someone else came not long afterwards, but did not bother Yi Futian seeing that he was training with his eyes closed, electing to stand far away instead. Yi Futian opened his eyes, and then saw Yin Qianyue smiling. He then asked, "Is there anything I could help you with, Miss Qianyue?" Yin Qianyue stepped out, and came before Yi Futian. She was dressed in blue attire, facing Yi Futian before bowing to him, saying, "Please guide me in my training, sir." "You've learned something?" Yi Futian's expression was peculiar. He had only reminded her of something, and did not expect her to be able to get something out of it in such a short period of time. "Indeed." Yin Qianyue nodded. "I'd like you to be my teacher. I was simply giving you pointers. That was just a way of training, and I didn't actually teach you anything. You all being able to get it so quickly to your own intellect. It has little to do with me, and I'm afraid I'm unqualified to teach you," Yi Futian smiled and said. He had many teachers throughout this journey in cultivation, and every single one of them played key roles in various stages in his life. He totally did not expect someone to want to take him as their teacher. However, he had actually fulfilled all the requirements for such a role. The only inadequacy was that he appeared too young. If you are unwilling to take me as your student, would you mind if I come here often to ask for guidance then? Yin Qianyue continued. Yi Futian had really simply given her pointers, and that was something that could not have been applied in everything. However, she was able to get what she sought in an extremely short period of them, picking up the lightning arts that she sought. It simply proved that Yi Futian was extremely learned in such ways. Not at all. Yi Futian nodded and agreed to it. Yin Qianyue smiled and bowed, saying, "Thank you, sir." A group of people arrived from the air at that moment, who then walked up to him. Yin Ting flashed and came to him as well, who then addressed the crowd. "Sir Yi is a guest of mine. You shall not be rude in my place." Those people backed away one after another. Yin Ting frowned and said, "Many mighty ones from the Celestial Sword clan came. Li Rishuang led those people personally to the Yun clan, demanding that we hand you over." Yun Ni's expression became somewhat colder at the mention of the Celestial Sword Li clan. The same went with Yin Qianyue as well. "Aren't the Celestial Sword Li clan enemies with the Yun clan of Luo City?" Yi Futian asked. "Why is Li Rishuang able to come all the way here to make demands?" Li Rishuang was extraordinarily talented among her generation in the Celestial Sword Li clan, and it was extremely possible for her to train under Emperor Qi. Yun Ting elaborated. "Emperor Qi often picks a bunch of people in his territory, and they stand a chance of being personally taught by the emperor. Li Rishuang's talents are such that the probability of her making it is extremely high. As such, she has been very proactive in making the necessary preparations. If Li Rishuang were to succeed, then the status of the Celestial Sword Li clan would have changed considerably, and they would have been able to loom right over us." Yin Qianyue's aura was that of extreme cold. She had been training very diligently in her clan, just so to one day surpass those from the Celestial Sword Li clan. She saw Li Rishuang as her goal, driving herself forward. Yi Futian was even able to sense faint killing intent from her. He looked at Yin Qianyue in a curious manner, and Yin Teng at the side added, "Qianyue's father died by the hands of those from the Celestial Sword Li clan." Yi Futian's pupils constricted slightly. He only understood why Yin and I said that Yin Teng was not only doing what was done for him back then. Sword wills howled outside the Yin clan manor at that moment. A group of mighty ones rode on their swords, and the woman leading them was none other than Li Rishuang. They knew that they were not able to kill Yi Futian back then, and gave. They also knew that Yin Teng had considerable enmity for them. At that moment, however, she came directly to the Yun clan, and demanded they hand over the man they were looking for, and it was to see if the Yun clan would have complied. Li Rishuang had elders standing on each side of her. One of them was a senior from the Celestial Sword Li clan, who had been the unblemished saint out to cut Yi Futian down back then. Li Rishuang had elders standing on each side of her. One of them was a senior from the Celestial Sword Li clan, who had been the unblemished saint out to cut Yi Futian down back then. The other elder was wearing a tight-fitting long robe, and looked to be over 50 years old. His eyes were narrowed and rather eerie, and gave the impression that he was unfriendly. He stood with his hands behind his back, and those narrowed eyes of his looked rather cold. He seldom appeared in the region, so there were few who knew of him. A group of mighty ones from the Yin clan were there. The one who took the lead was named Yin Chong, who was Yin Teng's brother. His bearing was calm and steady as he looked at Li Rishuang. Yin Chong actually spent more time eyeing the long-robed elder beside Li Rishuang. He was suspicious of that person's identity. From his perspective, the Celestial Sword Li clan was the enemy, and they had a lot of scores to settle with each other. Despite Li Rishuang's forceful temperament, they should not have dared to demand that the Yin clan hand anyone over. That elder was probably not someone from the Celestial Sword Li clan. "You do not look familiar. May I ask where you train?" Yin Chong asked in a probing manner. The elder with narrowed eyes seemed to have turned his eyes into slits when he looked at Yin Chong. His eyes seemed plain and uncaring, not bothering with unblemished saints from the Yin clan of Luo City. He did not even bother responding. That made Yin Chong feel rather heavy deep down. If that person dared to ignore him like that, he must really be someone formidable. Li Rishuang shot a sarcastic look at Yin Chong. Yi Futian had killed 2 saints from the Celestial Sword Li clan, and the Yun clan was actually still covering for him. Other than for revenge, she was there at the Yun clan to have those on the other side offend the people at her side. So long as the Yun clan refused to yield, it would naturally offend that elder. She wanted to see how the Yun clan would react to it. Yun Chong, do you know that Renhuang mural back then was something that Ms. Rushwang intended to take and present to the Zhuoqiu clan of the imperial city? It was fine that you didn't want to do anything about the mural being destroyed, but you people of the Yun clan actually covered for him. How do you suppose we settle this then? Li Ku, who stood beside Li Rushwang, asked. Yun Chong felt rather troubled hearing what he said. He took a serious look at the one at Li Rushwang's side. The Zhuoqiu clan of the imperial city. The Zhuoqiu clan had come to fame and gained status due to the current clan leader having served as a bodyguard for Emperor Qi once and training with the emperor, going through thick and thin with him. The Zhuoqiu held incredible sway over a vast region and were of very high renown and status. Many legendary people had gradually emerged from the clan, and the clan had continued to grow strong. They were of extremely high status in Emperor Qi's territory, and they were one of the most powerful clans around. They held so much sway that they were even able to affect how the emperor made decisions. For instance, Emperor Qi chose geniuses from his territory to pass on methods of cultivation, but there was no way he could attend to everything. As such, he delegated a substantial amount of responsibilities to others, and the Zhuoqiu clan was one of those at such levels, commanding incredible influence. It was clear by then that Li Rushwang did not intend to fight for that mural left behind by a Renhuang in order to present it to the royal court. She intended to gift it to the Zhuoqiu clan, which was serving the royal palace instead. She intended to use that as a stepping stone in order to get closer to Emperor Qi and allow their clan to rise by leaps and bounds. Li Rushwang had always been of considerable talent herself. If she were to be instructed by Emperor Qi and acquire stronger cultivation resources, she would definitely rise to prominence in the future. The key was that the woman herself was very good at such machinations. If that were the case, we of the Zhuoqiu clan would have been willing to give it away if we were to be the ones taking it. However, we never knew any of this when we last fought, Yun Chong said. It was apparent that while they were the ones at a disadvantage in the squabble with the Celestial Swordly clan, handling it was still within their capacity. But if they were to make enemies of the Zhuoqiu clan, things would become difficult for them. In truth, the Yun clan had always attempted to establish connections with the officials who were close to the emperor, but they had never had any good way to do so. Those officials simply scoffed at them. Li Rushwang was apparently connected to the Zhuoqiu clan. If the Celestial Swordly clan were to be able to use such a connection to their advantage, it would definitely be a very bad thing for the Yun clan. Things would look dire for them. No point talking about any of that now. Hand the man over, Li Ku said plainly. That mighty one from the Zhuoqiu clan remained silent. He was only there as Li Rushwang's escort. He had examined her talents and found her to truly be a rare talented cultivator. She was still young, and she was already a saint of true self. She had an unyielding spirit in seeking the great path, and furthermore, she was willing to pay. He intended to first send her to learn at the emperor's side, and she would one day be married into the Zhuoqiu clan as well. As such, he did not mind that Li Rushwang borrowed such a connection to her advantage. They would be family sooner or later anyway. Yun Chong instructed his men to bring Yi Futian. He turned around and saw a group of people coming closer. Yun Teng, Yun and Yi Futian, and a group of people came over. That was not all. Many mighty ones from the Yun clan came as well. They felt heavy deep down after knowing that the elder had come from the Zhuoqiu clan. Yun Ting heard people talking when he was on his way. He was feeling troubled, as he knew that there was a huge mess to be dealt with up ahead. Li Rushwang was actually connected to the Zhuoqiu clan already. What is actually happening, Yun Teng? Yun Chong asked Yun Teng, who was about to reach them. Yun Ting looked at him, and then at the elder of the Zhuoqiu clan at Li Rushwang's side. He said, "The case of the three forces fighting over the wall has nothing to do with the Zhuoqiu clan in the first place. Li Rushwang, this is between us of the Yun clan and the Celestial Swordly clan. What is the meaning of dragging someone from the Wuxia clan into this? Li Rishuang shot a glance at Yin Teng. She was not there to reason with Yin Teng. To her, the only thing that mattered was the result. Is the Yin clan going to hand over the man or not? Li Rishuang was just as cold as her name implied. She had only asked if they were going to hand over the man, and nothing else. There was no need to explain anything. The place was silent. Yin and I and Yin Qianyue, who were standing behind Yin Teng, looked coldly at those from the Celestial Swordly clan. Yin Qianyue was strongly fixated on surpassing Li Rishuang in the future, so as to avenge her father. Yin Teng, we're not in a position to offend the Wuxia clan at the moment, Yin Chong said to Yin Teng telepathically. The way he saw it, Yi Futian was but an outsider, and he was not worth the trouble. Read the next chapter on our VIP novel. Come, can't you see that handing the man over would still be pointless? Li Rishuang is doing all this to establish a connection with someone higher up. If they are already in league with the Wuxia clan, it will only be a matter of time before they find other excuses to get rid of us. What is the difference between handing our guest over or not handing him over? Yin Teng retorted telepathically. At the very least, it would prevent the Wuxia clan from having an excuse to take us on for the time being. We need time, Yin Chong said. They were also fighting to establish a connection with a force comparable to the Wuxia clans as soon as possible. Yin Chong's son was also extremely talented in cultivation, and so there was a chance for the Yun clan as well. It was extremely unwise to get on the Wuxia clan's bad side at the moment. Though Yin Ting understood what his brother's thoughts were, he insisted nonetheless and said, "No way." He had already made that compromise once. That compromise had left lasting psychological trauma on his daughter, Yin and I. You can't understand the gravity of the situation, can you? Yin Chong replied telepathically in a rather severe tone. He did not bother with Yin Ting further, and turned to Yi Futian instead, saying, "Sir, this was between you and the Celestial Swordly clan to begin with, and Yin Teng has already done all he was able to. It is in our best interest not to get involved further. You are not one of the Yun clan, and I hope you understand that." Yi Futian appeared calm, and without any hint of resentment. It was entirely sensible for Yin Chong to make such a choice. There was no need for him to take such risks for a stranger. He's not a member of the Yin clan? Says who? Yin Qianyue asked. I've already taken Sir Yi as my teacher. The Celestial Swordly clan is an enemy of us of the Yun clan. Are we really just going to hand someone over, just because they tell us to? Furthermore, you're the eldest descendant of the clan, as well as a teacher and example for members of future generations of the clan. I'm afraid what you're doing now will only cause others to feel disgust. Yin Chong frowned and looked at Yin Qianyue. Finding her standing in a composed manner, her eyes determined. There were many mighty ones in the Yun clan, and he did not think there was a need for Yin Qianyue to take Yi Futian as her teacher. Furthermore, Yi Futian had not been around for long, and he saw that only as one of Yin Qianyue's excuses. Yi Futian understood that he had not agreed to take Yin Qianyue as his student, but what Yin Qianyue had said made him feel warm inside nonetheless. Qianyue, don't go letting your emotions get the better of you now. Yin Chong told Yin Qianyue off in a low voice. I'm simply telling the truth, Yin Qianyue said. It's almost time to head to the Imperial City. That mighty one from the Wuxia clan, who had been silent all that while, finally spoke. He swept his narrowed eyes over the Yun clan and continued. Make up your mind already. Li Rishuang looked over the ones from the Yin clan as well. Yin Chong's expression suggested that he was feeling very pressured. That man from the Wuxia clan had finally said something. Hold on, Yin Chong said. He looked at Yin Teng with a severe expression and said, the clan's interests precede all. Hand the man over. Yin Ting stared at him unflinchingly and said, I've made a compromise for the sake of the clan once. I'm not about to do the same again. I was the one who brought him here. If he wants to take my guest away, then we fight. Yin Chong looked very unwell hearing what Yin Teng had said. That mighty one from the Wuxia clan, who was standing across them, said plainly, We'll do then. He then began walking away and left altogether, seemingly tired of the charade. Li Rishuang did not say anything else, and she followed suit. She, however, shot a sarcastic look at those of the Yun clan. You people want to send someone to train under Emperor Qi? Ha! The look seemed to say. Well, you can stop dreaming now. The group left en masse and disappeared from sight soon after. Yin Chong looked glum. His plans might have been broken because of what had just happened. People from all over the place were about to gather at the imperial city, and there was no one who did not want to train under Emperor Qi. Everyone worked hard just to achieve that, and so did he. At that moment, everything might have just been ruined by Yin Teng. Good work there, Yin Teng, Yin Chong said coldly before stepping away and leaving. Many mighty ones from the Yin clan were there as well. They did not think that Yin Teng had been sensible with what he had done back there. The Zhuoqiu clan was an undeniable force in Emperor Qi's territory after all. Why would you need to put your clan through this for me? Yi Futian asked Yin Teng. So long as we are not in direct conflict with the Zhuoqiu clan, they as people who serve Emperor Qi will have to take their influence into consideration as well. They couldn't simply fight people like other forces do, and Emperor Qi wouldn't bother himself with all of that, Yin Ting said. But the Zhuoqiu clan is still a clan serving Emperor Qi, and if we do not have any other connections, it will be rather difficult for us at the Yun clan to train under the emperor after getting on the Zhuoqiu clan's bad side. Could the Zhuoqiu clan have any influence over how Emperor Qi selects the candidates whom he will later teach? Yi Futian asked. Emperor Qi selects such candidates every year. Anyone he has taken notice of will stand a great chance. But he leaves most other matters to his subordinates, and doesn't bother interfering with any of those matters at all. All manner of fighting and conflict is treated as part of cultivation. Survival of the fittest after all, Yin Ting said to Yi Futian. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Yin Teng was soon called away by clan members. Yi Futian knew it was because of the thing that just happened. Yin Teng was soon called away by clan members. Yi Futian knew it was because of the thing that just happened. Ma'am, how is the Zhuoqiu clan's real strength? Yi Futian asked Yin and I after Yu Teng was called away. Both Zhuoqiu clan and Zhong clan were the most flourishing powers in Emperor Qi's territory. They were much more prestigious than any other clans in Emperor Qi's territory. After years of development, both clans had cultivated innumerable top warriors, including many Nirvana Plane saints. As far as I know, there were warriors of the 4 Nirvana Plane in the Zhuoqiu clan, among whom Zhuoqiu Gong, the current clan head of the Zhuoqiu clan, was at the apex of Nirvana, much stronger than any other Nirvana saints. Yin and I said to Yi Futian, Zhuoqiu Gong has followed Emperor Qi for many years and received Emperor Qi's guidance. Under Emperor Qi's influence, even though he was restricted by talent and was unable to enter the Runhuang Plain, he could rarely find an opponent of equal level. Of course, I mean in Emperor Qi's territory. His ability may not be worth mentioning in the range of Heavenly Mandate Realm. Yi Futian nodded. The Heavenly Mandate Realm was very large, and this area was only a Runhuang territory. Only the strongest warriors of the place of origin of all thunder techniques, Nine Cloud Palace, or the Brahma's pure sky dared to call themselves peerless. However, since Zhuoqiu Gong could make his clan prosper in this place for so long, he should be an unusual person too. Even though he couldn't match Ren Huang and other top figures level, in the range of Heavenly Mandate Realm, he was amid the first rank. He was in a very high position. Although Yi Futian was new here, he could tell the competition in the Heavenly Mandate Realm, where strong figures were everywhere, was fierce. For Nirvana Saint, Yi Futian murmured to himself. If he could figure out where other people were and let them join him, that shouldn't be a problem. Or if he could find Master, maybe he just needed one more person. Since Emperor Qi didn't ask about these, it had become much easier. Before we, the Yin clan, had attempted to depend on the Zhong clan. Now since this thing happened, the clan side must be even more anxious, said Anai Sheng. As long as the Zhuoqiu clan is there, it is hard for members of our clan to cultivate under Emperor Qi's throne. Yin Teng's deed was righteous. It is all because of me, said Yi Futian. It is none of your business, said Yin and I with a shaking head. The Celestial Swordly clan had made connections with the Zhuoqiu clan beforehand. Otherwise, how could the people of the Zhuoqiu clan suddenly find Li Rishuang? Li Rishuang is not only extraordinarily talented, but he is very ruthless when he does things too. The Celestial Swordly clan and Yun clan are already enemies, so you are just an excuse she used to bring trouble. Without you the thing still would have happened. As for my father, I have said before, it is not all about you. Qinyue's father was also hounded to death by the Celestial Swordly clan. At that time, we gave in and endured the pain for the sake of clan interest. Now we still don't dare to start fighting them, because we are weaker than the Celestial Swordly clan. Yin and I explained. As for Yun Chong, who wanted to make concessions, his concern is not only the clan's interest, he has selfish reasons. An offspring of his is very outstanding, and is considered the most promising Yun clan member to cultivate under Emperor Qi's throne. He is working hard for it, and doesn't want to offend the Zhuoqiu clan. Yi Futian listened quietly. Yin and I spoke in a cold tone. Her husband's death must have been a big shock to her. They had sacrificed everything for the clan once, so now, when she listened to the excuse of for the clan again, she couldn't conceal her strong feeling of disgust. Not to mention that Yin Chong was not just for the clan. Sir Yi, please don't keep the thing in mind. The whole thing is not related to you. It is the issue within our clan, said Yin and I to Yi Futian. Yi Futian slightly nodded. Even though she said so, the thing started from him. Yin Tung was indeed very kind-hearted. If he could offer any help, he would not just stay out of it. Why did Li Rishuang come to the imperial city with people of the Zhuoqiu clan? Is anything about to happen? Asked Yi Futian. He will attend the palace examination, Yun Qianyue, who was standing nearby, cut in. The palace examination is where Emperor Qi selects young and outstanding Saint Plain cultivators. The ones who performs well will have the chance to become Emperor Qi's disciple and learn from him. The palace examination is mainly in charge of powers like Zhuoqiu clan and Zhong clan, added Yin and I. It is considered a big even in Emperor Qi's territory. Warriors of all areas in Emperor Qi's territory will attend. It is also part of the reason why the Zhuoqiu clan and the Zhong clan have a prestigious status. I see, said Yi Futian nodding. After listening to this, he could quickly connect everything. All these warriors were competing for the chance to become the Renhuang's disciple. Li Rishuang craved the opportunity. Yun clan and the Luo city wanted it too. There must be minimal vacancies there. Li Rishuang specially came to visit the Yun clan and caused trouble by using him as an excuse, and his goal was to incriminate the Yun clan. As long as he could make the Yun clan fall behind, one day, he would get rid of this opponent. So, it seems that I need to go to the imperial city, Yi Futian thought to himself. He was not interested in the palace examination. He didn't come to the heavenly mandate realm for a Renhuang's teaching. Now, his companions were all somewhere else, but as long as they were in Emperor Qi's territory, they would know about the palace examination. And that would be the only information everyone could receive at the same time. Other people must have thought of it too, so they could take this chance to meet there. He could think of it so others could too. When Yi Futian was absorbed in thought, it seemed that something came to Yin Shang's mind. She knitted her eyebrows as if she was worried. What happened, ma'am? Asked Yi Futian. One thing suddenly occurred to me. If it is true, there will be more disadvantages to our Yun clan, said Yin Shang in a soft voice. What is the thing? Yi Futian asked. There is a terrifying talented Saint Plain warrior among this generation of Zhuoqiu clan, whom even Emperor Qi thinks highly of. This time he will also attend the palace examination, but he will walk through it. He is a similar age to Li Rishuang, Yin and I softly said. Li Rishuang is determined in cultivation and has ambition. His talent and appearance are also outstanding. This time the Zhuoqiu clan sent warriors to visit the Celestial Swordly clan in person. Or maybe, you mean they arranged a political marriage for him? Asked Yi Futian. Yin Ni nodded and said, if so, Li Rishuang's status will immediately rise, and the Celestial Swordly clan will also get a chance. Thinking about this, Yin and I didn't look very good. She had been seeking revenge after her husband's death. But if the Celestial Swordly clan flourished, survival not to mention revenge, would be hard. Yun Qianyue often came to consult with Yi Futian. Every time, Yi Futian would share his previous comprehension with her, since he had experienced the cultivation path Yun Qianyue was working on. And he was good at comprehending things, especially when it came to the integration of the power of rules and creation. And it was what Yun Qianyue was going through. At this moment, Yun Qianyue was sitting and cultivating in Yi Futian's courtyard, her eyes closed. Thunder burst around her, emitting gorgeous light. Yi Futian was sitting a short distance away, and was playing an ancient zither. The voice of the zither was full of energy, fierce like thunder. It also affected Yun Qianyue, and helped her enter the artistic atmosphere of it. Listening to music that fit one's personality was beneficial to a person's cultivation. Suddenly, as if the forceful sound of zither exploded in the artistic atmosphere, the destructive thunder rose. The light of thunder around Yun Qianyue's body illuminated the sky and erupted at once. She opened her eyes. The spirit around her surged. The destructive thunder and lightning were about to flood the whole space. After a while, the will of thunder rules was gradually appeased. She had a look of amazement on her face. She turned her beautiful eyes toward Yi Futian and said, "Thank you, sir." These days Yi Futian had been guiding her cultivation. She had not only made quick progress in thunder techniques, but with the aid of the zither, she had even improved her state of mind. And the thunder techniques suited her better, which was a wonderful feeling. "You have talent," Yi Futian said with a smile. He discovered Yun Qianyue's talent was actually very outstanding, and that she had potential. "That is because the teacher teaches well," said Yun Qianyue laughing. "I never promised to be your teacher," said Yi Futian with a laugh. "Fine. You are good at teaching," said Yun Qianyue smiling. At the same time, in another villa of the Yun clan, Yun Chong was standing in the courtyard. Behind him, a young man stood with his hands behind back in an unusual manner. A group of people came in front of them and slightly bowed. "How's it going?" asked Yun Chong. The Wuxia clan and Celestial Swordly clan indeed had the plan to unite by marriage, that person replied. Hearing this, Yun Chong immediately turned sullen. Behind him, the young man's face turned gloomy too. It might hinder him from cultivating under the throne of Emperor Qi. Yun Chong waved his hand. His mind was released, and enveloped the space, as if prohibiting others from probing into it. He looked at the person and asked, "And the other thing I told you to do, how is it?" That person took a bow and cupped his hands as a salute and replied, "It's going well." As you expected, Zhong clan indeed showed their interest, especially Miss Qianyue. They have promised to help if we show a willingness to send them to Zhong clan in service. "Good," said Yun Chong. He stared at him with a pair of piercing eyes and told him, "Nobody else shall know about it. You must change your wording in front of the clan lord. Do you understand?" "Aye, sir," he replied nodding. "Then you can go," said Yun Chong. He waved his hand, and a storage ring flew into that person's hand. He bowed and showed gratitude, then soon retreated and left the place. Yun Chong looked into the distance. Coldness flashed across his face. Yun Ting didn't get along with him after the first thing happened. But now that he was dead, it was meaningless to linger on it. All was for the clan to get stronger. Now, they even sheltered a stranger and displeased the Wuxia clan. Luckily, Yun Chong had prepared a backup plan. For the clan this time, he had to let Yun Tung make sacrifices again. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Yun Ting came to the villa where Yi Futian was. Yun Ting came to the villa where Yi Futian was. "Sir." Yi Futian opened his eyes and saluted. He was cultivating. "I just found a cultivator roaming around in the Luo city. His name is Yu Sheng. Do you know him?" asked Yun Tung. Yi Futian paused a second, and then nodded, smiling. He didn't expect Yu Sheng was nearby. "Where is he?" He stood up and asked. "Let's go," Yun Ting said and turned around. Yi Futian followed him, and soon they flashed away from the Yun residence. In Luo City, a lot of people gathered in one place, bustling with noise. Some cultivators were lying on the ground. All of them were saint-level cultivators with some fame in Luo City. They were usually considered geniuses. However, at this moment, they had been beaten down. All were lying on the ground. Next to them, their seniors were encircling a burly person in anger. "Do you want to intervene in this too, people from Yun clan?" said a senior angrily. This burly person was too arrogant. Futian was dumbstruck. He immediately recognized that burly figure from a distance. It could only be Yusheng. For real, this guy liked making trouble more than Futian did. "Yusheng!" shouted Futian. The burly beast, who was releasing a ferocious life force, paused a second and turned around. When he saw Futian, he grinned. The life force on his body suddenly disappeared. He flashed in front of Futian. Seeing Futian staring at him, Yusheng turned his head and pretended as if nothing had happened. "For my sake, would you mind putting an end to the thing today?" Yunting looked toward these people and pleaded. These people seemed quite discontented, but they also had scruples about Yunteng. Since the Yun clan was the lord of this city, Yunteng was of unblemished plain, and none of them dared to challenge him. "Since you have spoken, surely we will not do anything serious. It's just this boy is too arrogant. In his eyes, we were like nothing. If we don't teach him a lesson, we can't appease people's anger," said one senior. Obviously, they still looked quite furious. Just because of one squabble, he brought them all to their knees. Some people's hands and legs were fractured. He was such an asterisk shoal. "Since then you don't need to lend a hand," said Yusheng to Yunteng. He took one step forward and said to these discontented people, "For those of you who have complaints, come on, fight me." After speaking, he released a fierce life force from his body. Those seniors' mouths twitched. Just now they had fought once. Although they were all seniors of the true self plane, and Yusheng was just at the apex of Doctrine Saint plane, inferior to them in terms of level, Yusheng's fist almost broke their hand bones. If they had real combat, they didn't have the confidence. Where did this asterisk shoal come from? One fist knocked out a warrior of his same plane. Even to the higher plane warriors he showed no mercy either. Yunteng looked toward Futian. Futian was quite awkward. Before, when he as a Doctrine Saint fought with Xingkai the true self-saint, Yusheng was also at the apex of Doctrine Saint plane. He could even beat Xingkai, the strongest warrior of Crimson Dragon realm. As for fighting with the true self-saints of the Luo city, that shouldn't be a big deal. "Sir, my friend was really out of line. Maybe he needs some discipline. Let's not get involved," said Futian to Yunteng. Yunteng paused a second and didn't know what Futian meant. Did he really want to treat his friend like this? But since Futian said so, he nodded and said, "If so, I will let you handle it. But please show some mercy." After Xingkai finished talking, Yusheng took a step forward. Suddenly the ferocious demonic will rumbled around his body. He was dressed in a demonic deity's armor. Even the strongest true self-plane senior shook his arms and twitched his mouth, staring at those demonic eyes. He thought to himself that if he were defeated by this young person here, perhaps his long-established fame would be buried here today. Thinking about this, he said, "Let's call it a day. I don't want to face any controversy related to bullying young people." He waved his hand, indicating he didn't want to fight. "Nah, I don't mind at all," said Yusheng. He continued stepping forward. A gust of violent force pushed ahead and added pressure on the senior, whose face turned pale. What did this asterisk shoal mean? The senior tossed his sleeves back and said, "I don't want to cause controversy. For Mr. Yun's sake, I will put it to an end." After saying that, he directly turned around and left with those young warriors, who had been pounded to the ground. He just left like that. It was two. The crowd around them blinked in disbelief. What was this situation? Just now they couldn't wait to fight, and had to stop because that person from the Yun clan intervened. But now they had just let it go. Yunting didn't understand it either. Yusheng looked toward others and said, "How about you come over to fight me?" "No, we don't bully young people either. Since Mr. Yin has spoken, we shouldn't quibble over it," they all said and left with their people. Seeing others leave, of course, they knew what had happened. They had no confidence in winning over him. Soon they all went away crestfallen. No one claimed they wanted revenge. Yusheng was standing at the center. No one could fight. He looked quite unhappy and let out a sigh, murmuring, "They were all very boastful." Then he retrieved his force and walked to Yi Futian's side. Yinting was like, "They dared not fight?" He also saw through something and showed little surprise. This friend of Yi Futian's was just a young man of doctrine plain. And he scared away old people of true self plain? They all ran away like that. Thinking about how Yi Futian killed people of the celestial swordly clan with one strike, he was somehow speechless. It seemed that these people from the Crimson Dragon realm all had excessively strong combat power. If so, when Yi Futian told him not to intervene, Yi Futian was not teaching Yu Sheng a lesson. He was obviously bullying them. What happened? Yi Futian looked at Yu Sheng and said. He didn't know what to say. Was it fun to bully them like that? Their tone was too arrogant while they were too weak, said Yu Sheng. Yi Futian was speechless and didn't need to ask anything. Although Yu Sheng hardly showed mercy in a fight, he knew when it was time to act properly. It must have been that someone offended him. Otherwise, he would not have started the fight for no reason. Have you met anyone else? Asked Yi Futian. No. After the space was distorted, I fell outside the city, and then I directly entered the city, said Yu Sheng. So our locations were not very far. After the space was distorted, others should land within Emperor Qi's territory too, said Yi Futian in a soft voice. Sir, after a few days, we will go to the imperial city with you. If all of them were in Emperor Qi's territory, as he had speculated, he should be able to find some people in the imperial city. All right, said Yin Tung nodding. After a few days, they will depart for the imperial city. Not only them, but other warriors in Emperor Qi's territory would also go too. For many cultivators, the palace examination in imperial city was a great opportunity. It was an opportunity that could even change their destiny. Soon, they returned to the Yin residence. Knowing that Yu Sheng had come, Yin Qianyue came to visit. She stared him up and down curiously. From Yu Sheng, she could perceive a gust of invisible pressure. It was as if he had a peerless imposing attribute in his body. He was able to intimidate so many true self-saints as a doctrine saint, which meant he must be a very unusual figure. But Yu Qianyue learned from her grandpa that Yu Sheng listened to Mr. Yi. Sir Yi was very mysterious to her. She had been cultivating under Yi Futian's instruction for a few days, and had made great improvements. He was always so gentle and well-mannered, but so far, she had never seen through Sir Yi once. He was like the sea, like stars in the sky. Sir Yu, I am glad to meet you, saluted Yin Qianyue slightly bowing. Yu Sheng felt the form of address kind of weird, but he nodded a little bit. Yin Qianyue felt Yu Sheng was not very easygoing. So she just gave up and said to Yi Futian, Sir, I have mentioned to my mother that I want to become your disciple and cultivate with you. My mother doesn't mind. Can you take me as a disciple? Seeing Yin Qianyue mention it again, Yi Futian forced a dry smile. Yin Qianyue's talent was outstanding, and she was a good person too. Yi Futian liked her amiable personality. He didn't mind receiving a disciple if he were in Emperor Xia's realm. But due to the thing he was ready to do in the heavenly mandate realm, he was not able to let Yin Qianyue travel with him. There were so many people of Sage Plain and Thousand Leaves City that he didn't take. He shook his head and said, Qianyue, it's not like I don't want to take you on as a disciple. It's just I have my own thing to do in heavenly mandate realm, and I don't want to take care of you. Yin Qianyue nodded. There was a disappointment in her eyes. She said, The thing you want to do must be very difficult. Yi Futian nodded. He wanted to go to the Brahma's pure sky to find his own roots. It couldn't be easy. If so, I will say yes to the Lord, Yin Qianyue said with a smile. The Lord said he wanted to specially raise me and take me to the palace examination in the future. One day, maybe I will have the change to cultivate under Emperor Qi's throne. Yi Futian nodded and said, Your talent is very outstanding. That shouldn't be a problem. In the future, you will definitely be able to cultivate with the Ren Huang and learn teachings from him. Maybe you will become Ren Huang too, said Yin Qianyue laughing. I should go back. After a few days, I will go to the imperial city with you. Yes, Yi Futian said and nodded. After Yin Qianyue left, Yu Sheng looked toward Yi Futian and said, She sincerely wanted you to become her master. Why don't you take her on as your disciple? I must be responsible for her if I take her as my disciple. We will leave after a few days. Why do I let her miss me? Said Yi Futian. Yuxing didn't say anything. During these days, everything looked quietly in the Yun residence. The departure day was approaching. On this day, Yi Futian practiced a set of fist skills and just finished cultivation. Suddenly, he heard noises from outside. What happens? Yi Futian frowned. He looked into the distance and saw in the Yun residence. There was light of thunder falling from the sky. It was as if a fight was about to break out. Father, is this the way you treat me? Someone let out a furious roar, echoing in the Yun residence. Yi Futian's heart suddenly sank. It was Yin Teng's voice. Let's go and see, said Yi Futian to Yu Sheng. They directly flashed there, where many people had gathered. Yin Teng and Yin and I were standing in the crowd. Yin Nin looked grief-stricken. There was absolute despair and even hatred in that pair of eyes, which were staring at people of the Yun clan. Anything happen? Said Yi Futian to himself. He had a bad feeling about it. Sending Qianyue away. It is for her future. An old man said to Yin Teng and Yin and I while looking at them. His manner was solemn and imposing. His voice was sonorous like a large bell's chime. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. For the future? Yin Ting questioned. For the future? Yin Ting questioned. There was a coldness in Yin Teng's eyes. He stared at his father, the lord of the Yun clan. His father had promised to cultivate Qianxue before. He used to believe it was true, and thought his father wanted to atone for Qianxue's father's death in this way. Obviously, he thought too much. Qianxue didn't go to the imperial city with them. She was sent away beforehand with many other outstanding ladies of the clan. But the person who picked them up was from the Zhong clan of the imperial city. How could Yunting not understand that the Yun clan, his family, had sold Qianyue in exchange for the family interest? So you sent her to the Zhong clan for the future? The light of lightning exuded from Yin Teng's body. He tried to control his fury and snarled in a low voice. Qianyue is still young, but she has shown very unusual talent. The clan has already been indebted to her because of her father's death. Why do you still want to do this? He was even reluctant to believe that it was a thing the Yun clan of Luo City could do. They couldn't be more cold-blooded. It was Qianyue's extraordinary talent that made the Zhong clan pay attention to her. You are very clear about the Zhong clan's status. She will have a better future with them, continued Lord Yin. Father, I can't believe such brazen speech came out of your mouth, said Yin Teng, the light of thunder flowing around his body. In Emperor Qi's territory, everyone knows the cultivation method of the Zhong clan. Zhong Qiu, the current successor of Zhong clan, is notorious for his cultivation of ultimate will of ice. He cultivated in the pure yin power of the will of yin yang, even via women's bodies. People all tried to stay away from them. Only those shameless families send good women to the Zhong clan as maids in order to seek connection with them. I didn't expect that you, my father, also became one of them. It is so ridiculous. Being a maid was a subordinate job in the world of cultivation. Zhong Qiu of the Zhong clan hadn't married yet, but had already had many maids to help him cultivate and gain fame. Such a way of cultivation should have been looked down upon. But the Zhong clan had a lofty status in heavenly mandate realm and never forced others. So powerful clans still often sent their women to the Zhong clan. Yunting thought such a thing would be far away from them. Although he knew Yun clan had been trying to establish a connection with the Zhong clan, he didn't expect they used such a despicable way. Watch your mouth, Lord Yun rebuked him. The Zhong clan cares for Qianyue's talent. Zhong Qiu is the strongest warrior in Emperor Qi's territory. If Qianyue stays with him, in the future, she might have the chance to marry Zhong Qiu. I have also asked them to treat Qianyue nicely. In the future, even if she can't become his wife, as long as Qianyue performs well, it is not hard to become a mistress. I don't know what's wrong with it. You want her to please others to become a mistress, said Yun Nin, tearing up, utterly broken-hearted. Just because her last name is not Yun. You are despicable, Yin Chong. It was your idea, right? Using my daughter to trade for your son's future. She glanced at the people in the crowd, and finally, Her crimson eyes fell upon Yun Chong, and his son Yunemo was the most talented Saint Plain man of this generation in the Yun clan. All the Yun people had been resting their hopes on him, and since Lord Yun used her daughter to trade, the only possible reason was to help Yunemo shut up. Yunmo took an emotionless glance at Yun and I and said coldly, "All people of the Yun clan work for the benefit of the clan. You refused to hand the person over for your personal reasons, and offended the Zhuoqiu clan. So you are supposed to be the one to pay for it. I got news from the Imperial City that the Celestial Swordly clan may seek connection with Zhuoqiu clan via marriage. You must know that only Zhong clan is able to fight against the Zhuoqiu clan, and Zhong Qiu of the Zhong clan is the only one comparable with that genius of the Zhuoqiu clan. You have made mistakes without regard to our clan interests once, and now it's time for you to make a sacrifice. You are acting presumptuously here. I should warn you, don't forget what your last name is." Yi Futian observed all that happened silently. He now understood everything. Yun Chong, who had been acting nicely, finally showed his true colors. For the clan interest? Of course, he was willing to sacrifice other people's children instead of his own, and even his child for the so-called clan. Was Qianyue taken to the Zhong clan and traded like goods? As a maid, the status of a maid was inferior. She had to listen to every order of the master, and belong to the master physically and mentally. How dare he say it was for Qianyue? As Yinteng had said, they were shameless. The crueler the cultivation land was, the more the people there worshipped self-interest. But he knew arguing was meaningless. The way of thinking was rooted in their veins. Despicable people wouldn't think of themselves as despicable. They would believe what they thought was all true. Otherwise, they would not have reached their current cultivation plane while questioning themselves. "Sir, ma'am, arguing with them is meaningless. Let's go to the Imperial City," Yi Futian said to Yun Teng and Yun and I. Qianyue was not sent away for a long time. They could still catch up with her if they hurried. "Do you have the right to speak here?" An arrogant voice came. Yun Chong's son Yunemo glanced at Yi Futian with coldness. "Don't forget who caused the trouble." Yu Xing saw Yunemo act like this, and released the imposing life force from his body. Yi Futian looked quite calm. Although he had the thought to kill, he was still trying to control his fury. The speaker was the so-called future of the Yun clan. All things the Yun clan had done were for him. "Qianyue has been cultivating with me, so she is like a half-disciple of mine. If anything happens to her, I will not let any one of you go," Yi Futian said calmly, but there was a chill hidden under this calmness, which made one feel like the temperature had been lowered. The lord of the Yun clan looked at him. At this moment, he seemed to be able to perceive a special disposition from this true self-plain young man. His disposition seemed to be the leadership of a person in a lofty position with disdain for the Yun clan. He, as a Nirvana Plain saint, suddenly perceived a keen sense of threat from this young man. Yun Chong and Yunemo took a glance at Yi Futian with surprise. There seemed to be some contempt in his glance. He would not let anyone go. Who did he think he was? Yi Futian took one step forward and said to Yun Teng and Yun and I, "We'd better hurry up. Don't waste time here." "Okay." Yun Teng nodded and said, trying to restrain his anger. He wanted to leave with Yun and I. Someone blocked their way, but Lord Yun said, "Just let them go." He knew it was unfair to Yun Teng and Yun and I, but as Yun Chong had said, once the Celestial Swordly clan had a connection with the Zhuoqiu clan through marriage, they who had a grudge with the Celestial Swordly clan would be in danger. They must get rid of this situation, and the only way they could find was to get close to the Zhong clan. There must be a sacrifice for the clan. "We should depart too," continued Lord Yin. Yun Teng was just an unblemished saint, and he was of Nirvana Plain. They would reach the Imperial City prior to Yun Teng, and they would inform the Zhong clan beforehand. Yun Teng wouldn't do anything bad, and he didn't want anything happen to Yun Teng either, since he was his heir. He could judge by Yun Teng's cultivation plane that Yun Teng couldn't do anything big, even if he reached the Imperial City. The large group of warriors of the Yun clan started their journey. They drove their divine instruments instead of walking, and drew a flash of lightning on the sky dome. They directly surpassed Yun Teng and others, and headed into the distance. Yun Teng and others looked quite embarrassed. According to the plan, they were supposed to depart with other clan members and reach the palace examination on time. Sir Yin, the date of the palace examination is approaching, right? Asked Yi Futian. His plan was also to keep up with the Yin clan warriors. Yes, nodded Yin Teng. If so, the Zhong clan will also prepare for the palace examination, and temporarily, Qianyue should be safe. Sir and ma'am, you don't need to worry too much, said Yi Futian. Even though Yi Futian said so, Yin Teng and Yin Shang didn't look relaxed at all. How could they not worry about them? Even though nothing had happened, the situation was still. Even Yin clan didn't dare to provoke such a giant like Zhong clan, not to mention them. Would it work even if they reached the imperial city? But now they were not allowed to think that much. They could only go there first. Qianyue is my half-disciple. I will handle it when we reach the imperial city, continued Yi Futian. Both Yin Teng and Yin Shang looked at him. Yi Futian seemed to be serious, just like when he threatened Lord Yin. He looked very confident. Okay, said Yin Shang, nodding. Qianyue trusted Mr. Yi. She even wanted to be his disciple and follow him to cultivate. Every time after cultivation, Qianyue often spoke highly of Mr. Yi in front of her. So unconsciously, she also felt Yi Futian was a very unusual person. Now since he said so, the hope was also growing in her heart. Or maybe he had the chance to do it. It at least was a wisp of hope no matter how bleak it was. In Emperor Qi's territory, in the solemn imperial city, above the sky dome, warriors traveled in the air. Today, all the warriors within Emperor Qi's territory gathered in the imperial city and headed to the core of the city. It was the start date of the palace examination of Emperor Qi's territory. The chosen ones would have the opportunity to cultivate with Emperor Qi and learn his teachings. Heavenly Mandate Realm was the ultimate Renhuang realm. It was also the one among the 3,000 realms of the Great Law, who honored the martial spirit most. Here, everyone pursued the law of martial arts. Such zeal spread across the endless realm. People from all directions would not miss this great event. Even then, many powers had already arrived beforehand. When the palace examination was about to start, Yi Futian and the other three had arrived. However, they didn't directly head toward the place where the palace examination was held, but rather, they went to visit the Zhong clan, with Yin Teng as the lead. Compared with the palace examination, they cared more about Yin Qianyue's safety. As for the palace examination, they did not care for it. Their speed was extremely fast. They were so worried that something would happen to Yin Qianyue that they moved at the fastest pace. Finally, when the palace examination began, they had reached the Zhong clan residence in the imperial city. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Yi Futian, they reached the Zhong clan and were blocked by guards of the residence. Yi Futian, they reached the Zhong clan and were blocked by guards of the residence. Yi Futian slightly nodded to Yin Teng and Yin and I, then walked up to the front of the guards and said, "We are from the Yin clan of Luo City. Before long, Our Lady Yin Qianyue came to your residence. This is her grandfather. This is her mother. Please pass the message that we came to visit her." The Zhong clan and the Wuxia clan had similar levels of power and owned 4 warriors of Nirvana Plain. Still, since the palace examination was held in the imperial city, all people of Emperor Qi's territory had headed toward the imperial palace, so the lord of Zhong clan was not at home. If Yin Qianyue had been in the Zhong clan, they would have taken her. The guard acted quite politely after hearing Yi Futian's words. He slightly bowed and said, "Young Master Qiu has been taking Miss Qianyue with him since she reached the residence. They should be in the palace examination at the imperial palace. I can pass the message if you don't mind waiting for them in the residence." "No need. Thanks," Yi Futian replied and turned around. Yin Teng and Yin Nin knew what he meant and followed him in another direction. Yin Nin looked quite pale. Was Qianyue chosen by Zhong Qiu just after she came? Qianyue hasn't stayed here for a long while, and the palace examination was after it. Nothing should have happened to her, said Yi Futian in a low voice. Yin and I nodded. She had no choice but to think in this way. even though she was just trying to comfort herself. Although Yi Futian said he would handle this, was he really capable of saving Qianyue? Now, numerous high-level warriors were gathering in the palace examination. Even though 4 of them were all of Saint Plain, the situation was still too unfavorable to them. How could they rescue her? 4 of them flashed toward the direction of the imperial palace. After a while, they came to the outside of the palace and could see the busy crowd seen in front of them from a distance. Cultivators scattered in all directions in this large space. The palace examination of the imperial city was the largest event in Emperor Qi's territory. Yi Futian wedged his way into the crowd. In front of him, there was an ancient golden road paved outside the imperial palace that headed toward a giant matrix plaza. Dazzling patterns were carved on its surface. There were warriors fighting over it. The other 3 sides were grandstands, where many warriors were watching the battle. The most powerful family clans of Emperor Qi's territory were sitting at the forefront. At this moment the crowd bustled. Many warriors exclaimed. Yi Futian followed the noise and looked toward that side. He saw a figure standing on the grandstand with hands behind his back. His disposition was outstanding. No doubt, Swordsmanship is one of the most peerless figures in the territory. Among all his peers, only Zhongqiu can compete with him, many people remarked. Yi Futian heard people's praise and looked at the unusual young man on the grandstand. His clothes were blowing in the wind. He is Zhuoqiu. When people in the clan talk about the political marriage between the Zhuoqiu clan and the celestial sword Li Chan, they are referring to Zhuoqiu and Li Rushuang. He is one of the most outstanding warriors of this generation in Emperor Qi's territory, Yunting said to Yi Futian while pushing his way forward. He had been anxiously looking toward the seats of honor in front of the grandstand, seeking something. Soon, Yunting found where the Zhong clan warriors were. His pupils slightly contracted. That familiar figure was there. Qianyue. Yunting directly ignored the peerless person on the grandstand and fixed his eyes on the graceful figure. Yun Qianyue. Qianyue, Yun Shang saw her too. Yi Futian looked quite calm when seeing Yun Qianyue. She stood there quietly. Beside her, there were countless powerful warriors. A handsome young man with fair skin sat in front of her. His skin was mesmerizingly fair, even fairer than women's. He was quite feminine looking. He was watching the battlefield. A slight chill exuded from his cold, calm eyes. He should be Zhongqiu of the Zhong clan, and his unique temperament should be related to his cultivation. Ma'am, I think Qianyue is fine. Yi Futian called her when he saw Yin and I was heading there. Yin Nin turned her head and looked at him. Now Qianyue is there. Temporarily, nothing will happen to her, continued Yi Futian. Yin and I paused a second and nodded. Of course she knew. But seeing her daughter there, she didn't have the heart to leave her there. Sir, what should we do? Asked Yin and I. Yi Futian was absorbed in thinking, and when he took a glance and noticed one person, he suddenly paused for a while. In front of him, some warriors sat in the row of seats of honor, and next to a young man sat a familiar person. You are here too. The whisper came to Yi Futian's ears. A smile immediately cracked on Yi Futian's face. He replied from a distance, Master, how did you get here? So the person who was sitting there was his master, Qi Xiangang. After the ancient path of space was destroyed, we were separated. Thinking that it must be hard to find everyone, I directly came to the imperial city and entered the imperial palace, so it would be much easier to meet any of you. Your brother is here too, said Qi Xiangang smiling. Yi Futian looked up and found Mu Chunyang and Lu Chuan behind Master. Mu Chuanyang and Lu Chuan had been following Master for many years and knew Master much better than he did. They also took action very quickly, so they met Master faster than Yi Futian. Wu Yong arrived yesterday. He was on your left, said Qi Xiangang. Yi Futian looked toward the left and saw Wu Yong shoving his way forward in the crowd. He said, Lord Yi, is anyone else here? Asked Yi Futian. We don't know yet. But since today is the date of palace examination in Emperor Qi's territory, those who have received the information should know it is a good chance to meet, said Wu Yong. Yes. Yi Futian felt relieved. He asked Yun Teng, who was next to him, Are the people in front of us royal members? Yes. Yinting nodded and replied. Emperor Qi's princes and princesses have all attended the event in person. Emperor Qi might show up too. The people behind princes are all revered figures from the imperial palace. Yi Futian was finally relieved. Before, he was worried about how to get rid of all this safely, but now he didn't need to worry at all. Master was there, at the apex of Nirvana Plain, nearly invincible. Wherever he went, he was treated as the guest of honor, even though it was in Emperor Qi's imperial palace. Sitting next to the prince, he could easily notice almost everyone. It was indeed a smart idea. Sir, just set your mind at ease. Many companions of mine from the Crimson Dragon realm have arrived. Nothing will happen to Qianyue, said Yi Futian to Yunting. Yunting paused. He knew Yi Futian was from the Crimson Dragon realm, and he came with the Prince of Crimson Dragon realm. Did it mean the royal warriors of Crimson Dragon realm had come? This thought gave him a wisp of hope. Yi Futian's words made him have faith again. Yi Futian didn't take action immediately, but rather, he quietly observed everything in the crowd. The palace examination was held by the Wuxia clan and the Zhong clan. The Wuxia clan and the Zhong clan would also be in charge of deciding who to choose. All powers coordinated with each other, and finally, the most talented Saint Plain figures in Emperor Qi's territory would gather in this palace examination and fight each other, showing themselves to the public. Finally, the Wuxia clan and the Zhong clan would make the decision of who would be summoned by Emperor Qi in person. That was why a huge political power was formed with Wuxia clan and Zhong clan as the center, and these two clans stood on the top throughout Emperor Qi's territory. All the cultivators had thoroughly prepared and performed well during the combat in the palace examination. Of course, nobody could surpass Wuxia Yan of the Wuxia clan and Zhong Qiu of the Zhong clan. From time to time, one could hear the audience's praise to them from the grandstand. Many people worshipped these two people's talent and regarded them as the goal. However, many also knew that even if they didn't attend the palace examination, they would still become Emperor Qi's disciple and learn his teachings. Thus, they still should show their abilities during the palace examination. Yi Futian delivered voice to Qi Xiangang and made some inquiries. At this moment, next to Qi Xiangang, the Prince Qiyu asked him, Sir, what do you think of the warriors that attended the palace examination today? He showed great respect to him. The first day he met Qi Xiangang in the imperial palace, the prince was impressed by his cultivation knowledge and his temperament. Since his last name was also Qi, the prince invited him to be one of his teachers. Qi Xiangang had promised to give guidance to him, but he also said he wouldn't stay for long. Their performances were passable, said Qi Xiangang, but they are not strong. What kind of person do you mean, sir? Asked the Prince of Qi. It is hard to tell, but you will understand it soon, Your Highness, replied Qi Xiangang. I can tell your standards are very high. I have a rough idea of what you mean, but I don't know if I have a chance to see one here, said the Prince of Qi, laughing. Mr. Qi's standard is so high that nobody in the palace examination can meet it. I am inquisitive as to what kind of person you are talking about, the Lord of Wuxia clan said slowly, after hearing the dialogue between Qi Xiangang and the prince. The Lord was the man standing on the peak of Emperor Qi's territory. Wuxia Yan was also one of the most talented warriors among all clans. However, after arrival, Qi Xiangang was esteemed by the emperor and beloved by princes. The lord of the Wuxia clan had been curious how powerful this emperor's guest of honor was. Qi Xiangang made it sound like no one in the palace examination could meet his standard for a strong warrior. You might have the chance to meet it one today, said Qi Xiangang. Really? Said the prince, laughing. If so, I am looking forward to it. The palace examination is near its end. Is there still any talented person who has yet come to the stage? After speaking, he looked up into the distance. After several battles, the participants of the palace examination all came out. The last two warriors showed up. One of them was Yin Mo from the Yin clan of Luo City. Seeing him, warriors of the Yin clan all got quite excited. The chance was here. They all hoped Yin Mo would not disappoint them. Yin Mo indeed tried his best for this battle. He perfectly displayed all his abilities and won over the opponent with a marvelous performance. After the battle, A tinge of smile was seen on his smile. He looked toward where warriors of the Yun clan were. A soft wind blew across his face. He was standing there, one step further toward his goal. Good, a warrior of the Zhong clan commented. He walked to the prince and asked, Your Highness, what do you think of all the participants of the palace examination today? Prince Qi took a look at Qi Xiangang and turned to the huge crowd around him. What do you think? Our Emperor Qi's territory indeed has countless talents, someone said. Other people also echoed and gave praise. Are these the so-called talents specially selected from everywhere of Emperor Qi's territory to attend the palace examination? Suddenly, a voice came from the crowd. It was not loud, but it was very clear. It came into everyone's ears, and all of a sudden, the noisy crowd quieted down. Very soon, the place fell silent. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Was he jeering at the palace examination attendees' abilities? Was he jeering at the palace examination attendees' abilities? Was he turning his nose up at all these elites of Emperor Qi's territory? Numerous pairs of eyes roamed over the crowd, seeking who the speaker was, and soon, people fixed their eyes on one person. The young man with silver hair strode forward. He was the only one walking in the crowd, and looked very conspicuous. Not to mention others. After hearing this, even Yun Tang and Yun and I, who were standing beside Yi Futian, had strange looks on their faces. Wasn't Yi Futian the person who told them to stay calm and be low profile? He told them to cool down, but now, he came onto the stage in this way. All of a sudden, he attracted the attention of everybody, including the big figures of Emperor Qi's territory. Yu Xing closely went behind Yi Futian. Seeing the scene, Yun Tang and Yun and I had to brace themselves to catch up with them. Wu Yong quietly followed them at a distance. Before people came to realize it, Yi Futian had taken a step and had strode over to the fighting platform of the palace examination right under their gazes. Sir Yi, Yun Qianyue murmured to herself. She was standing on the side of warriors of the Zhong clan. Watching the man with silver hair step on the high platform, she felt disquieted. When she was forcibly sent to the Zhong clan by her clan, she thought she had been resigned to fate. Her father's death had already totally broken her heart. She chose to give up herself. She had decided to become a stronger person at all costs until one day, she could get revenge for herself. However, when she had already made the decision, that gentle and handsome figure showed up again. It was just that in contrast with his usual mild appearance at this moment, he looked more unruly, with a pair of sharper eyes. Was this his true color? But in the situation like today, if he came for her, he was risking his life. Do you know him? Seeing Yun Qianyue was distracted, Zhong Qiu slowly asked her. His tone was just like him, with a kind of coldness that made one shiver. Yun Qianyue could sense the malice in his tone, so she said, Sir Yi is just a guest in my family. This is not his business. Zhong Qiu didn't say anything. How dare a guest in the family jeer at the people in the palace examination? Where are you from? Who allowed you to step on the fighting platform? The host of the palace examination from the Wuxia clan yelled. He stepped out and stood above the void sky, scolding him for what he was doing. He looked quite imposing. The might was released from his body and fell upon Yi Futian. Yi Futian's white clothes were blowing in the wind, his feet firmly planted on the ground. He took a glance at him coldly, then looked ahead to the crowd and said, If His Highness asks me what I think about the palace examination, I would say the palace examination this time includes people who sold girls in their clan in exchange for the vacancies, people who endured ill treatment to get a chance to enter the exam, people who cultivated through the flesh of women. How can you tell me these people are the most talented ones in Emperor Qi's territory? Yi Futian's words immediately raised an uproar. People all started talking, and the vast space was suddenly full of noise. There was someone who dared to point out the shady deals behind the palace examination. Everyone was clear that these things could not be put on the table. Every year, there were indeed a lot of shady deals behind the talent selection process. Many people used all means possible to get the chance to approach Emperor Qi and learn from him. No matter what, Even though there were many dirty deals behind the scenes, the final chosen ones were still outstanding. The palace examination was still a big event, and normal people wouldn't care about what happened off stage. Since anyone who spoke the truth would not simply offend one or two powers, it was equal to bringing about their destruction. Not to mention that absolute equality never existed on Earth. There was order in the world, but there was always a shadow behind the sun. All this was covered up nicely. Was Emperor Qi really unaware of it? He would not ask about all these things, and he didn't have the time to do it unless he didn't cultivate and focused on these trivial things every day. For many people, it was a big event that might affect their fortune, but for Emperor Qi, it was just one thing that happened for one day in his life. Warriors of the Yun clan all looked sullen. Yun Mo was just one step away from the goal, but now Yi Futian came out and caused trouble again. In addition to them, Li Rushuang of the Celestial Swordly clan, and warriors of the Zhuoqiu clan and Zhong clan, also put on surly faces, and stared at Yi Futian coldly. As everyone had speculated, Yi Futian offended everyone with just a few words. It was basically equal to seeking death. Unscrupulous, the warrior of the Zhuoqiu clan stepped down. His intimidating life force crushed Yi Futian's body. Yi Futian raised his head and took a glance at him. Prince Qiyu ordered, "Back off." The lord of the Zhuoqiu clan took a look at Qiyu. Just now, Qi Xiangang seemed to have said something to him. Qiyu looked at Yi Futian. He somehow roused his interest. Before, Sir Qi said he might have the chance to see one. Did he mean this person? The warrior of the Zhuoqiu clan had to withdraw. Yi Futian took one more step forward. His eyes fell on Yun Mo and said, "Yun Mo, from the Yun clan of Luo City." In order to create the chance for him to attend the palace examination and seek connections with larger powers, his clan sent a lady to the larger clan to serve as their servant. And that is why he could stand on the stage of the palace examination and enjoy others' worship. "Do you think he deserves to stand here?" asked Yi Futian. Yun Mo's face now looked extremely sullen. He was the most outstanding one among this generation of the Yun clan, which was why the clan paid the expensive price for him to study beneath Emperor Qi's throne. Now, when he was almost approaching his goal, Yi Futian came out and brought the thing to light. He just felt his face was burning under people's gazes. Those pairs of eyes were so piercing. "It is the right of our clan to decide where to send our ladies for cultivation. I don't know why it sounds so jarring, coming out of your mouth. I have stepped on the fighting platform and proved that I could attend the palace examination. Still in your eyes, the palace examination of Emperor Qi's territory is nothing but a deal?" Yun Mo step by step approached Yi Futian and questioned him. The light of thunder was shining in the sky, devouring the void air. The scene was appalling. "Not to mention that you escaped death under the protection of my clan, but you are not grateful, and are trying to tarnish our name here. How should we deal with you?" Yun Mo's voice was extremely intimidating. The horrifying thunder might of the great law fell, and grew stronger and stronger. "I have taken Yun Qianyue of the Yun clan as my disciple," said Yi Futian. "Without the order of her parents, the order of her grandfather, the order of her teacher, the Yun clan doesn't have the right to arrange her destiny. I demand the Yun clan retrieve the order and send Qianyue back. You don't deserve it." Yun Mo's tone was still aggressive. Yi Futian looked in the direction of the Yun clan and saw Yun Chong and other people's cold faces. Their stares toward Yi Futian was full of desire to kill him. They didn't repent for what they had done at all. As if for them, Yun Mo's future was more important than anything else. Yun Qianyue's future deserved to be sacrificed for the family's interest, because they all thought from their standpoints. If that was the case, Yi Futian looked toward Qiyu's direction. He slightly bowed and said, "Your Highness, my apologies for disturbing you. It's just my disciple was forcibly taken away from home. Am I allowed to bring justice for her?" "As you like," said Qiyu quite relaxingly, as if he didn't mind Yi Futian causing an uproar. As long as he had the ability. "Thank you, Your Highness." He cupped his hands as a salute. His words were quite pushy, but he had very good manners. "You want to fight me, eh?" asked Yun Mo. He took one more step ahead. His cultivation level was comparable with Yi Futian's. Yi Futian took a glance at Yun Mo coldly and said, You don't deserve it. Seeing Yi Futian's disdainful look, Yin Mo turned sullen. A loud boom came out, and suddenly, the killing will swept across the world. He was the strongest warrior of this generation in the Yun clan, and he didn't deserve it. Boom. The loud boom made people's hearts thump rapidly. A figure rushed out from Yi Futian's behind. It was Yu Sheng. The fighting platform trembled, as if it was about to break. Yu Sheng came in front of Yin Mo with a few strides. Seeing him coming, Yin Mo held out one palm, and suddenly, all the great law of thunder between the sky and earth converged in his palm. Innumerable divine thunder fell, and bombed toward Yu Sheng's body. However, Yu Sheng seemed to be covered with the armor of the demonic law. The thunder fell and circled above his body. It was as if they were slowly being devoured. A doctrine saint dared to ignore the might of a true self-saint? Many people thought to themselves and looked stunned. How could his human body be so strong? Yin Mo looked sullen. The appalling might of thunder converged on the center of his palm, devouring the light of destruction. Boom! Lightning flashed across the sky dome at an unbelievably fast pace. Suddenly, the thunder in his palm exploded and darted forward. All of a sudden, the lightning illuminated the sky. Yu Sheng raised one arm. Suddenly, tens of thousands of demonic deities showed up. He drew out a demonic palm print, which suppressed the eternal land and sealed the sky. They too collided with each other at a short distance. The appalling loud sound resonated between the sky and earth, making people's eardrums tremble. Bam! Another loud boom. Their bodies were separated. Yu Sheng stood up firmly. The demonic armor on his body seemed to be smashed by the thunder, and his sleeves were also torn. However, Yin Mo's body was blown away. Even though his attack was powerful enough, his defense was not that strong, and he was unable to bear such an intimidating strike. He was not able to kill Yu Sheng with one strike, and his arm had been sprained. Yu Sheng again took a step forward harshly and grasped Yin Mo's sprained arm. Yin Mo's body was lying in the air. Yu Sheng grasped his arm and lifted Yin Mo's body. Numerous pairs of eyes froze there. Yin Mo! Yelled Yin Chong. He rushed to the battlefield fast like lightning. At the same time, a figure in white rushed out and thrust out the halberd of time and space with the aura of all stars, blocking Yin Chong's way. Go away, bellowed Yin Chong. The might of thunder fell, trying to destroy Yi Futian's body, but the halberd pierced into the sky. It broke everything and rushed to his front, halting his body. Their bodies collided. Over the high platform, Yu Sheng's fist smashed down. After a shriek, Yin Mo's body fell down feebly. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Boom! After a loud boom, Yin Mo's bones were smashed into pieces. Lying there dead, he was not able to exert strength at all. Boom! After a loud boom, Yin Mo's bones were smashed into pieces. Lying there dead, he was not able to exert strength at all. He couldn't damage Yu Sheng's defense, but just with one strike, Yu Sheng's attack destroyed his defenses and vanquished him most forcefully. This doctrine saint forcibly won over Yin Mo of the true self plane. Did the battle prove the real strength of a person who attended the palace examination? People thought of Yi Futian's jeer before the fight, and felt it even more jarring. On the other side, a collision also happened between Yi Futian and Yin Chong, under the gazes of numerous pairs of eyes in shock. Yin Chong, as an unblemished saint, was shaken back to the place where warriors of the Yun clan gathered. He was an unblemished saint of the third level in the saint plane. Yi Futian, with silver hair, stood there imposingly with the halberd of time and space in hand, his white clothes blowing in the wind. His temperament was outstanding. As if he could defend the attacks from tens of thousands of men. Yin Mo didn't deserve fighting with him. Even his father, Yin Chong, of the unblemished saint, was shaken away. How could Yin Mo fight with Yi Futian? You sold my disciple in exchange for your son's future. Yi Futian shouted in a cold and intimidating voice, solemnly raising the halberd to the sky. Do you deserve her? Yi Futian's voice was like a slap on the faces of all warriors from the Yun clan. They sent Yi Futian's disciple to serve as a servant in exchange for Yin Mo's future. But ironically, Yin Mo couldn't bear even one blow. Besides, Yi Futian's disciple herself was a lady of the Yun clan, which made Yun clan look even more despicable and useless. The scene that just happened indeed put warriors of the Yun clan to shame. They couldn't be more embarrassed. They claimed Yun Mo was the genius, the strongest warrior of this generation of Yun clan, and even traded a clan lady in exchange for a chance to better cultivate Yun Mo. But at this moment, Yi Futian slapped on their faces in front of the whole world. Besides, nobody had expected Yi Futian and Yu Sheng to be this powerful. A person like him doesn't deserve cultivating. If he studied under Emperor Qi, that would be a disgrace to his majesty, said Yi Futian. He should be deprived of his cultivation. You are too presumptuous, the lord of the Yin clan yelled, and took one step out. The terrifying Nirvana plane life force enveloped toward Yi Futian and Yu Sheng. Yi Futian could perceive the Nirvana life force. He pointed the halberd of time and space toward him. At the same time, a person jumped into the air from the crowd. It was Wu Yong who showed up, the life force of the same Nirvana plane released from his body. Do you want me to exterminate your whole clan? Yi Futian spat out these cold words, the halberd of time and space swallowing and emitting horrifying light. His voice made all warriors of the Yin clan shiver. It was not only aiming at Yin Mo. Just one sentence. Do you want to exterminate your whole clan? How aggressive. As if he could use one sentence to decide the life and death of Yin clan of Luo City, exterminating the whole clan. While a Nirvana saint was just standing next to him. Yi Futian didn't even say anything, and he directly showed up, as if he had been guarding nearby. They all had to guess Yi Futian's real identity. He was accompanied by a Nirvana plane figure. They even began to feel funny, that they used to think Yi Futian needed their protection. Had he been faking? Yi Futian directly stunned all warriors of the Yun clan with one sentence. Even the Nirvana plane lord of the Yun clan perceived an invisible pressure from him. No wonder he once absent-mindedly felt Yi Futian was a gallant figure in a high position. Now it looked like his feeling was right. It was not an illusion. He is an outsider. He had no right to intervene affairs of the Yun clan. Yun Chong shouted, noticing the lord had the intention of quitting. It was not because he had the courage, just because his son Yin Mo was in Yu Sheng's hands and could be hurt at any time. No wonder he felt anxious. After the words, he turned around toward another direction. Yu Sheng's arm smashed down again. Yin Mo let out a shriek full of agony, and soon Yu Sheng threw him to the people of the Yun clan. Remember what you said for the family, Yi Futian reminded Yin Chong with his back to him. Didn't it sound great? Being great while sacrificing others, how gross it was. People's eyes all fell upon Yi Futian. Today was the day of the palace examination, a big event in Emperor Qi's territory. However, at this moment, it seemed that Yi Futian was the only hero of this palace examination. But since Prince Qi Yu asked Yi Futian to take charge of this, other people would not intervene. At this moment, Yi Futian was heading forward. He took a glance at Li Rishwang from the Celestial Sword Li clan and said, Li Rishwang from the Celestial Sword Li clan claimed to kill me and threatened to capture me from the Yun clan. Celestial Sword Li clan, it is up to you. He even didn't pause his steps while walking, as if he had never kept Li Rishwang in mind. But Li Rishwang had tried to kill him twice, undermining the Yun clan with the power of Zhuqiu clan, threatened to capture him, and found a connection with the Zhuqiu clan. Her ambition was accomplished by treading on others. Then it could only be destroyed. As for her talent and her aloofness, Yi Futian was not interested at all. Hearing Yi Futian's cold words, Li Rishwang turned sullen. Was he threatening the Celestial Sword Li clan? Just in one sentence. Too presumptuous. As if he didn't give a shit about all the talents in the palace examination. The Zhuqiu clan was the one that the Celestial Sword Li clan hung on. And today, Yi Futian seemed to be ready to offend both the Zhuqiu clan and the Zhong clan. The palace examination has been going on for many years. I've never before seen a person as presumptuous as you. A voice came at this moment. People were slightly stirred when they saw the speaker, Zhuqiu Yan. The young man was the most outstanding man of the Emperor Qi's territory, the joint strongest warrior, along with Zhong Qiu in this palace examination. They were also respectively the Zhuqiu clan's future and the Zhong clan's future. Zhuoqiu Yin stared at Yi Futian. Not to mention Yi Futian claimed that the Emperor Qi's territory had no strong warriors. Li Rushuang was the woman chosen by the Zhuoqiu clan, and if nothing wrong happened, she would become his wife. How dare Yi Futian threaten the celestial sword Li clan to treat Li Rushuang just with a few words? Yi Futian took an emotionless glance at him and ignored him, kept walking toward another direction, the direction where warriors of the Zhong clan were. The Zhuoqiu clan and the Zhong clan were the joint highest powers in Emperor Qi's territory. Yi Futian stood in front of warriors of the Zhong clan. He looked at that elegant figure behind Zhong Qiu and said, "Qianyue, come back." Yun Qianyue looked at that man in white, her eyes wet. She had already lost hope, but she didn't expect that man would show up today in such an imposing manner, in front of the world, to seek justice for her. But suddenly, Yun Qianyue perceived a slight pressure. In front of her, a slight cold will was slowly being released from Zhong Qiu's body. The coldness infused into her bones and veins steadily, and made her unable to move. She was still young, just of sage plane. Zhong Qiu could easily control her with a wisp of will. Zhong Qiu didn't turn his head to her. He fixed his stare on Yi Futian and said, "She belongs to the Zhong clan now." He doesn't care what Yi Futian was. Here was Emperor Qi's territory. The Zhuoqiu clan and the Zhong clan had prospered in Emperor Qi's territory for many years. The Zhuoqiu clan and the Zhong clan were at their apex within this territory. Yi Futian just came here and disdained everyone, ignoring all the existing rules. What he said was too demeaning to the Zhong clan. The reputation of the Zhong clan could even be ruined. The Yun clan of the Luo city volunteered to send the girl to the Zhong clan residence, but now he used it as evidence of the Zhong clan's ill repute. Yi Futian heard Zhong Qiu's words and saw him look straight at him, but he didn't pause his steps. Numerous pairs of eyes fell on him. In front of him was Zhong clan, the strongest power of Emperor Qi's territory, the clan which stood shoulder to shoulder with the Zhong clan. Was he ready to directly confront them? But so far, people still had no idea what the cards in his hand looked like. Even if he was able to win over Zhong Qiu, how could he get rid of the situation safety, since he had offended everybody? Belonged to Zhong clan? Who decided her destiny? Yi Futian looked at Zhong Qiu and asked, "The old cadres in Yun clan or you?" "No need to tell you," said Zhong Qiu. Yi Futian laughed after hearing Zhong Qiu's words. He took back the halberd of time and space in his hand and said, "Is he the strongest warrior in the palace examination?" Yi Futian's silver hair was flying. The wind rose on the fighting platform, and his clothes were blowing. He looked at Zhong Qiu and said, "I heard you cultivate with women's bodies as your cauldron? Your cultivation method is filthy. Your way of doing things is filthy too. I don't know how your ability is, but from your conduct, I know you don't deserve to be a saint. Ironically, you are peerless in the palace examination." He turned around when he talked, and took a few steps back. When people were confused by what he was doing, he again turned around, looked at Zhong Qiu and said, "To deal with a cultivator like you, one strike should be enough." The crowd again went dead silent. Yi Futian stood still with hands behind back and said to Zhong Qiu, "Get out. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible." One hit was all it had taken. One hit was all it had taken. Everyone was speechless. If Yi Futian had been the one saying that to the others, it probably would not have left much of an impact. However, the one he was facing was Zhong Qiu, the most extraordinary of saints to be found in Emperor Qi's territory. He was also the future leading figure of the Zhong clan. Zhong Qiu had exhibited extremely terrifying combat prowess back at the palace examination. Every single one who was of his plane had been overwhelmed when they had fought him. In Emperor Qi's territory, both Zhuoqiu Yan and Zhong Yan were like nearly unconquerable mountains. However, that man who had just come had told Zhong Qiu to get out there in a very uncouth manner. Eerie, hostile intent was gradually since being sent in Yi Futian's direction. Those from the Zhong clan sported cold expressions. There was hardly any expression seen on the pale face of Zhong Qiu, but his eyes would have sent bone-chilling cold to anyone looking at them. Get out there? One hit would suffice? No one had dared to say anything like that to him before. Just who did he think he was? A chuckle was heard all of a sudden. There seemed to be hints of ridicule within, but that person did not say anything. Many saw that the one who had chuckled sarcastically was none other than Wuxia Yan. While Zhong Qiu was indeed his rival, the other man was nonetheless just as renowned as he was. Despite their rivalry, he acknowledged what Zhong Qiu was capable of. Yi Futian had disrespected both him and Zhong Qiu one after another, and that could no longer have been described as brash and insolent alone. Yi Futian looked at him, and Wuxia Yan responded in kind, returning his gaze plainly. If you're interested in trying your hand as well, you're welcome to. Yi Futian's words caused the plain smile on Wuxia Yan's lips to gradually disappear. Big talk indeed. What happens if you can't pull off what you claimed you'd be able to pull off then? Wuxia Yan's face turned increasingly glum. The Prince Qiyu did not interfere. It was easy to tell that the prince intended to see how capable they were as well. If they were unable to put Yi Futian in his place, the prince would also see it and think they were incompetent. However, both the Wuxia clan and the Zhong clan were top-notch forces found in Emperor Qi's territory, and that day was the day of the palace examination. Yi Futian had essentially stolen their thunder by behaving in such an uncouth manner. If he was unable to do what he claimed, then death, of course. A mighty one from the Wuxia clan said. The one who'd said so was none other than that mighty one who had walked with Li Rishuang back then. His tone was cold, eerie, and full of killing intent. You'll only have one chance at this, Zhong Qiu said at the same time. He gradually rose and walked towards Yi Futian. He would not have minded fighting Yi Futian, just to see what enabled that man to be so insolent. However, Yi Futian had provoked him to do battle in such an insulting manner. If he dared to be that presumptuous, then he would only give that man a single chance. One hit. If you're unable to do so, you die. Zhong Qiu rose and walked towards Yi Futian. Every step he took caused the place around him to turn increasingly cold. The eerie coldness seemed to slow the senses of everyone around him. The will of the great path seeped into Yi Futian's body, affecting his blood flow. It even began to slow his senses, as if the great path in his surroundings had actually begun to slow down. The will of the great path affected the senses of others, making it seem like he was the only one left in that space. Sir Yi. Yun Qinyue's face turned pale. Yi Futian sought justice for her, and she was naturally grateful and touched because of that. However, she knew well just how powerful both Wuxia Yan and Zhong Qiu were. She had witnessed Zhong Qiu's battle not long ago. While she indeed believed in Yi Futian's powers, she was unable to fathom whether it was possible to unleash just a single hit and end it all. There were just too many variables at work with that one hit. Unless the difference in powers was overwhelmingly great, ending it all with just a single hit would not be possible. Furthermore, from the way the Wuxia clan and the Zhong clan behaved, they did not intend to fight Yi Futian fair and square. If that one hit did not work, they would really move out and kill Yi Futian, showing no mercy whatsoever. If Yi Futian really failed to do what he said he was capable of, and both the Wuxia clan and the Zhong clan were out to kill him, the prince would still probably keep his hands to himself. The mighty one of the Zhong clan shot a cold glance at Yun Qinyue. His eyes seemed to have a faint hint of coldness in them, causing her to shiver all over. She was able to sense clearly the killing intent within the eyes of the mighty one from the Zhong clan. Those people really sought to kill Yi Futian for what he had done. Yi Futian had truly offended the two greatest forces in Emperor Qi's territory. She looked at Yi Futian, who appeared totally unfazed despite being under tremendous pressure from those two top-notch forces. His eyes remained the same, and he, standing proud, seemed to be saying that he was confident to take on whatever changes were to come. The will of the great path of entropy was unleashed. That formless, eerily cold power was shattered right away. The battle between saints was done in the face of the might of the great path. The way of entropy was unbelievably overbearing. Despite that, the attacks that Zhong Qiu practiced were extremely cold, and the coldness was everywhere. They remained incapable of invading his body. Yi Futian extended his hand, and stars were conjured all over the place. making it look like the place had been turned into a world of stars. A great many constellations appeared all of a sudden in the sky above. The light of constellations orbited with Yi Futian at the center, seemingly moving with a mystical tune, and a raging might shrouded the place. A halberd of the great path appeared on Yi Futian's palm. The boundless light of the stars coursed, and that weapon pulsed with frightening powers within an instant, seemingly capable of breaking and subduing everything it touched. The light pulsing on the weapon alone made Zhongqiu sense tremendous pressure. His eyes turned severe, and he burst with coldness all over him, which was then conjured into a storm of cold. Cold eerie currents swept at Yi Futian's body. The method he trained in was on the extreme yin side of the spectrum of yin and yang, capable of killing without alerting the target. Boom! The stars all over the sky seemed to burst into flames right at that very instant. The devastating halberd of the great path lit up with true flames of the sun, with extremely overbearing will of the great path bursting through it, as if it were out to overpower Zhongqiu's eerie cold. If Zhongqiu took the path of extreme yin and extreme cold, then Yi Futian sought to respond by bringing the power of extreme yang and extreme heat to bear. Boom! Zhongqiu's life spirit appeared, which was a black turtle sacred beast. That terrifying will of the great path coalesced into solid currents with him at the center, circling around him, and every single current caused any place they passed to turn completely dead. When that many currents were coursing about at the same time, the scene was nothing short of harrowing. At that moment, Yi Futian stepped forward, and their surroundings shook violently. Zhongqiu's heart seemed to shake alongside Yi Futian's steps. Even one hit would be too much for the likes of you. Yi Futian walked towards Zhongqiu, zipping past the space within an instant. The pressure that Xing Kai had put on him had been stronger than what Zhongqiu, at the moment, was able to muster. Yi Futian had still been a proving holiness saint back then, and now, he was already a saint of true self. There was no way Zhongqiu could have won against him. The stars above the sky orbited at that very moment where Yi Futian walked. The light of the constellation of the Great Path rained down at the same time, crushing everything around him, and he charged, making it seem like the light of ancient symbols was raining down on Zhongqiu. At that moment, Zhongqiu felt as if he were caught in the world of stars. Every single beam of light of the Great Path shot at him, like a star coming down on him. Countless stars rained down as they burned with true flames of the sun, making them capable of razing everything they hit. His expression finally changed. When Yi Futian truly brought his might to bear, Zhongqiu finally realized just how terrifying things could have been. That pale face of his seemed to turn even paler. Countless currents rushed at Yi Futian in a frenzy, yet they seemed insignificant before Yi Futian's attacks. He roared, and a huge black turtle appeared, freezing the entire place as he was shrouded within, turning his attacks into defense. Boom, boom, boom. Their surroundings continued to shake, and thousands of clashes seemed to happen within a single moment. The black turtle began to crack, and a holy halberd burst through, tearing the sacred beast at the center and penetrating what was inside. No, Zhongqiu became frightened. He cranked his powers to be the limit, intending to freeze the space over. Yet the black turtle continued to be destroyed. The halberd looked unstoppable. With a loud rumble, the life spirit crumbled altogether, and Yi Futian's halberd went straight into Zhongqiu's body. Zhongqiu looked horrified. He then looked up at Yi Futian, and saw Yi Futian push his hand forward lightly. Devastating power burst and tore through everything in Zhongqiu's body. He would have him dead if he was unable to pull it off. Huh? What about if he was actually able to do what he claimed to be able to? Boom! A person was sent flying and fell limply to the ground. Zhongqiu's face was filled with utter terror. He sensed that everything in his body had been destroyed. Even his life spirit had been taken apart by Yi Futian's attack. Yi Futian had thoroughly crippled him. "You're unfit for cultivation," Yi Futian said. Countless people watched that scene with baffled expressions, and their hearts raced. One hit. Yi Futian had truly only used one attack, and that attack had utterly overwhelmed his opponent. Was that really Zhongqiu? Zhongqiu of the Zhong clan had looked so impossibly weak back there. He was unable to take even a single hit. Zuo Qiuyan watched, feeling as if his mind had been rattled. His expression was a very ugly one. He was unable to imagine what would have happened if he had been the one to fight just moments ago. Sir Yi. Yun Qianyue watched the scene with a shocked expression, finding Yi Futian to be impossibly powerful. While she had gone to seek guidance from Yi Futian many times before, she had never seen what Yi Futian was truly capable of. And in that moment, she had finally seen it. Even someone as powerful as Zhong Qiu was unable to withstand even a single hit. Mighty ones of the Zhong clan at her side flashed to Zhong Qiu's side, looking into the extent of Zhong Qiu's injuries. Their expressions turned cold, and killing intent was sensed sweeping out. The killing intent became blatant after they saw that Zhong Qiu was utterly crippled. The mighty ones from the Zhong clan headed in Yi Futian's direction and said coldly, "You behaved in such an unbridled manner in the palace examination. Did you even have any respect for the prince or anyone else around you?" That man's killing intent was frightening, as if he intended to kill Yi Futian right where he stood. Many sweated on Yi Futian's behalf after sensing the terrifying might of a holiness of nirvana bursting through. They all wondered if the man who had crippled Zhong Qiu, with one single attack, would be able to walk off the stage alive. "Try making a move against my student if you dare." A towering might shrouded the entire place, pressing down on the holiness of nirvana. Everyone sensed the terrifying pressure within an instant. The holiness of nirvana of the Zhong clan turned around to look at the one who had spoken. He was not alone, as everyone looked toward the source of the voice. A figure appeared at the prince's side and slowly walked out. It was none other than Qi Xiangang. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. When Qi Xiangang walked out, his plain bearing changed all of a sudden. Despite wearing a plain long robe, he felt as if he had merged with the heavenly path as he walked. When Qi Xiangang walked out, his plain bearing changed all of a sudden. Despite wearing a plain long robe, he felt as if he had merged with the heavenly path as he walked. A terrifying might shrouded the holiness of nirvana of the Zhong clan. At that moment, countless people had their eyes on Qi Xiangang. He stopped and stood still, looking as if he were the only being left in that space. His student. The holiness of nirvana of the Zhong clan naturally knew of Qi Xiangang. He had become renowned in the royal palace as of late, and was highly valued by the prince, so much so that the prince often sought his guidance and training. Even those from the Wuxia clan and the Zhong clan were able to sense a looming threat from him. That man seemed to be out to fight for status in Emperor Qi's territory with them, and it did seem like he had the power to do so. Both the Wuxia clan and the Zhong clan were very wary of Qi Xiangang. However, none of them expected that that powerful being was the teacher of that unbelievable genius, who had just stepped onto the stage in such a presumptuous manner, and taken care of Zhong Qiu with a single hit. Those from the two forces became even more glum at that thought. To them, everything looked like it had been deliberately arranged by Qi Xiangang. He'd had his student rise by stepping on the heads of all the others, making his name known throughout Emperor Qi's territory, while shocking everyone else, allowing those from the royal palace see just how extraordinary his student was. Everything that had happened that day seemed to make sense at that thought, as if that was how things were supposed to be. The Yin clan was but one excuse. The newcomer's true objective had been to pass the palace examination and rise by stepping on their heads. What had just happened made it very easy for people to harbor such thoughts. The truth, however, was that while Qi Xiangang had indeed been waiting for Yi Futian, he had not known his student would show up in such a manner. But then again, from what Yi Futian said, he realized what was actually happening. A student of the younger generation of Yi Futian, in the heavenly mandate realm, had been forcefully gifted to others as a servant girl. Everyone in that vast place turned their eyes to Qi Xiangang as their hearts continued to race. That man who had just walked beside the prince seemed to possess extraordinary powers. The bursting of his might seemed to be that of the heavens, shrouding the entire place, and subjecting everyone to that formless pressure. So this was Yi Futian's backing then. No wonder he dared to provoke all major forces with impunity the way he did, going on to insult both the Wuxia clan and the Zhong clan. Yun Tung and Yun and I clenched their fists tight in the crowd and looked very agitated. They seemed to have truly seen the hope. Yi Futian was from the Crimson Dragon realm, so his teacher would have definitely been a top-notch figure back at the Crimson Dragon realm. It seemed that he was just as renowned in the Heavenly Mandate realm. Furthermore, he was at Prince Chi Yu's side. The prince would probably have not sided with anyone, and all who were squabbling would have had to rely on themselves. But then again, they wondered if Yi Futian's teacher alone would have sufficed to take on all those people. The holiness of Nirvana of the Zhong clan stared at Qi Xiangang, remaining silent. As a holiness of Nirvana himself, he naturally sensed, in the might bursting from Qi Xiangang, that the other man had far stronger comprehension and mastery of the great path than he did. It was apparent that that legendary figure in the royal palace who had emerged of late was more powerful than he was. A figure was seen rising in the Zhong clan's direction at that moment. He was slender and looked like an insurmountable mountain just by standing there. Everyone was shocked to see him rise. They were wondering if the palace examination would turn into a fight between top-notch figures. That man was the leader of the Zhong clan. Zhongli stood quietly and stared at Qi Xiangang. He naturally sensed that the prince seemed to have no intention to interfere in the matter. The prince probably knew already. They were subordinates of Emperor Qi, and were considered an extension of the emperor's power, as they served the emperor. But the emperor naturally knew that they would have looked for themselves as well. None of those matters could have been brought to light, and no one would have said anything about it. However, Yi Futian made clear what had happened on that day. The royal palace simply watched the events unfold, so it became clear that the prince intended to let them take care of matters on their own. If they lost, then their incompetence would be blamed, and that would serve as a good chance to knock some sense into them. Your student is indeed extremely formidable, Sir Qi, Zhongli said plainly. His voice was not loud, but everyone in that vast place was able to hear him clearly. Qi Xiangang and Yi Futian both looked at Zhongli, who had just spoken. Zhongli continued. But if Sir Qi were to find anything troublesome in the Zhong clan, you could have found another chance to bring the matter up. You could have told us straight that you intended to ask for a servant girl. It would have only taken a single word from you, Sir Qi, and I would have handed the girl over. There was no need for such commotion and insult to cultivators at the palace examination, as well as to crippled Zhong Qiu. At their level, if Qi Xiangang were to ask him to hand someone over, he would have definitely complied and handed said someone over. In his perspective, it was apparent that Qi Xiangang and Yi Futian had said what they had said as a slight towards them. Qi Xiangang was naturally aware of what lay between the lines in Zhong Li's words. He looked at Zhong Li and said, I've heard about both the Wuxia clan and the Zhong clan from His Highness, and he speaks highly of both clans. It is a pity that the repute seems to have eclipsed the man in the flesh. His Highness once asked how I would have compared to the Wuxia clan and the Zhong clan. From what I've seen today, I surely do not hope to be compared to the Zhong clan. Zhongli looked at Qi Xiangang with slightly raised brows. He wondered if the other man was insulting him, saying that he was beneath being compared. Qi Xiangang stepped out and elaborated slowly. The Zhong clan knew that she was being forced against her will to do so, and you knew that it was not within reason, and not something that should have been done. Regardless of who brought it up, you should have let the girl go and looked into the matter. Such was the way of the saints, instead of how you put it. If I were to ask the Zhong clan to hand over the girl, and you complied, it wouldn't have been out of reason and right or wrong, but out of faith and your own interests. Prince Qi Yu listened to Qi Shuanggong's speech, and flashed an expression of approval. The prince had found his speech and reasoning to be superb. If my student had not been able to defeat Zhong Qiu with a single hit, you would have killed him. Yet Zhong Qiu lost such a dare, and then you refused to bear the corresponding consequences. So that is to say that right or wrong are not being used to determine the outcome of the matter, but one's own power is. In that case, why berate him for insulting the Zhong clan? Wouldn't you be inviting insult to yourselves by doing so? Qi Xiangang said this as he walked, and he actually walked right past that holiness of Nirvana. The holiness of Nirvana watched as Qi Xiangang walked past him quietly, and his expression became rather stiff. Qi Xiangang then walked toward the Zhong clan and looked at Yun Qianyue, who was within the group of people of the Zhong clan. He asked, "Are you joining the Zhong clan of your own will?" Yun Qianyue looked at Qi Xiangang and said, "No, sir. This is not done pf my own will." Qi Xiangang nodded, smiling before continuing. "Yi Futian said you have already taken him as your teacher. Don't you think it'd be rather inappropriate to continue addressing me as sir?" Yun Qianyue was dumbfounded and looked up at Qi Xiangang. Her eyes were bloodshot, and the corners of her eyes seemed rather wet. She bowed solemnly and said, "My name is Qianyue, Grandmaster." "That's how it should be done." Qi Xiangang smiled and nodded. "Come over here." "Yes, Grandmaster." Yun Qianyue stepped forward, intending to walk past the group of people from the Zhong clan. However, several people stood in her way, and all of them burst with overwhelming pressure. That matter was not over. Zhongqiu, a genius of the Zhong clan, had been crippled, and those from the Zhong clan were not about to just let her walk free. Qi Xiangang burst with extremely terrifying might all of a sudden at that scene. His might of the great path shrouded their surroundings. The robe he wore billowed, despite that there was no wind. He stepped forward, and beams of golden light of the great path appeared in the sky, piercing downward, and causing all those beside Yun Qianyue to let out a stifled grunt. Their faces were pale as they backed away. All of them were saints. The mighty ones of the Zhong clan were shocked as they looked up. Qi Shuangang's powers were nothing short of terrifying. "If you people of the Zhong clan insist on detaining the student of my student, do not blame me if I go about this the hard way." Qi Shuangang's voice was cold as he continued to walk. Those mighty ones with pale faces looked extremely frustrated. They simply looked on as Qi Xiangang kept walking. None of them dared to do anything against Yun Qianyue. The might of one person had proved more than enough to stun all of the top-notch forces. That was how terrifying cultivators at the very pinnacle were. "Sir Qi, did you bother asking if I agreed to let you bully the Zhong clan's younger generation?" Zhongli's voice was cold. Powerful aura burst and lashed out at Qi Xiangang. Several holiness of nirvanas walked out as well, and all of them had terrifying aura. Their might fell not only on Qi Xiangang. Some of them went on to shroud Yi Futian with their might as well. It was as if they were saying that if Qi Xiangang dared make a move against the people of the Zhong clan, they would make a move against Yi Futian as well. Things were just as difficult for Zhongli at the moment. If they were to simply yield in this situation, not only would they no longer be able to achieve greater heights in Emperor Qi's territory, they would lose their current status altogether as well. If they were to give in, they would essentially be falling into a ravine. Qi Xiangang would take their place and become the new symbol of the pinnacle of power in Emperor Qi's territory. A figure flashed and appeared beside Yi Futian. It was Wu Yong. His raging aura burst and was cast onto the people of the Zhong clan. Several auras burst in the crowd at the same time, all of them overbearing. One person after another took to the sky and came onto the stage after that. Boom! One of them burst in the divine flames of the sun. His eyes burned like an inferno. That person was none other than Zhu Kong, the leader of the Zhu clan of the 9 tribes. City Lord. Zhu Kong stood behind Yi Futian and cupped his hands. Zhu Kong was no longer against Yi Futian at the moment. He, too, was able to see just how great Yi Futian's potential would have been. Rather than spending his time scheming against Yi Futian, he found it more sensible to simply wait. By the time Yi Futian became very powerful, he would not bother keeping them on a leash. He might even provide them with opportunities. City Lord. Yet another person emerged. He was the Vermilion Bird tribe leader, who burst with a holiness of nirvana level of pressure as well. "I was wondering if you would show up. I really didn't expect to find you here. But then again, challenging someone of your plane here? That's bullying, man." A voice was heard, and sword will was sensed. Sword aura then zipped past in the air, and several swordsmen walked up to the stage. The leader was none other than Pei Min of the Sword Emperor Palace. Several others stepped up as well, walking to the stage. Yin Tianjia was there as well. Several others followed as she walked up to the stage, staying close by her side, and said, "Princess." Apparently, after the ones who had come to the Crimson Dragon realm were scattered, They had somehow managed to make that place their meeting point after hearing that there was an event to be held in Emperor Qi's territory. They had then met up with Yi Futian coincidentally. A group of mighty ones appeared as well, and they came to Yi Futian's side. It seemed as if holiness of nirvanas were appearing one after another every now and then. The people of Emperor Qi's territory found this turn of events to be utterly baffling. Was the Zhong clan really going to fight against such odds? If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.